Let's take a look at media queries. What are they? Why do you need them? We need them for responsive designs. As I shrink this width of this page, you can see the background color and the column is changing sizes. And this is something we want to do for layout purposes and for navigation, definitely. Media queries help you create responsive design with CSS that can control how your layouts look under different circumstances, whether it's browser width or the width and orientation of a device. Let's get started and look into media queries. The outer and page classes are defined in a style sheet. I'm going to reset the max width for this page just for the beginning of this demo down to 600 pixels. I'll be changing that a little later. When I refresh this page, I'm now going to make a media query that when the page becomes narrow, to switch the background color. And then after that, I'll start changing the column size based upon the screen's width. These are the current properties and classes that are defined. I'm going to start a new section, and the new section will define everything that we want to override. At media is the beginning of the statement of the tag. What do you want to affect? I want to affect various screen sizes. You can also use the word print here and offer up a new layout for when someone prints out the web page. Right now, just doing screens. Followed by what the rules will be. And then a closing curly Q. Curly Q, curly Q. All the styles and style overrides will be defined between the curly Q brackets as nested CSS. The and part. So for screens, and what is the condition? When the max width is 800 pixels. This states going from 0 pixels to 800 pixels, do something. And what I want to do is redefine the property of the body tag background color. Currently, the background color is white. On smaller screen sizes from 0 to 800 pixels, let me type in the word body, and curly Q to curly Q will contain the classes of the body that I want to override. And you don't have to redefine everything. I'm just interested in redefining the background color as orange. When the screen's width, when the browser's width is between 0 pixels and 800 pixels, make the background of the body orange. Saving this, going to the web page, pressing refresh. Nothing happened. Why? Because the width of this browser is more than 800 pixels. Drag the browser to the left and shrink it. And when we hit that 800 pixel breakpoint, like magic, there it is, it's orange. When we go beyond 800 pixels, wow, this is CSS magic. Okay, again, not magic, just regular CSS combined with media queries to define breakpoints. And this will let you reestablish, redefine your layout for various screen sizes, and not just screen sizes, but also orientations, landscape and portrait. With this media query defined, let's refine this a little bit. I just don't want this to be 600 pixels all the time. No, I'm going to have to build something a little more robust here. I'm going to say that, all right, it's 800 pixels always, and eventually I'll work my way up. But on mobile, down here, I'm going to redefine page to be maybe 480 pixels. Page, just the class defined up here. I'm going to make the max width be a column of 480 pixels on smaller screens. This concept is at the core of defining how to produce mobile layouts. And if you're mobile first, then really you would have your regular CSS all defined for the structure of how a mobile layout is supposed to look. And then the media queries will define how the page will look on screens that are bigger than mobile. Mobile first means look at your design as being primarily seen on mobile, and all the other sizes grow from that one. Looking at this again, at 800 pixels, the background color of the page itself, defined by the body tag, will change to orange, and the page, which is our content area, whose width is normally 800 pixels, will shrink down to a smaller column of 480 pixels. Save. Refresh this page, and now we see 800 pixels as our column size for desktop browsing. Now when we hit the mobile boundary, which is 800 pixels or smaller, background will change to orange, and we get a smaller column, maybe just a one column layout. All right, this is looking good, but how do we deal with the fact that there's so much space on a desktop? We're going to define another media query just for desktop layouts. The 800 pixel width would be great for maybe laptops and tablets. Let's define a new media query. Right below this one, which starts here and ends here with the curly Q brackets and all that CSS defined in between, I'm going to build a new statement. At media, screen, and let's go between two different screen sizes. Currently, we have everything covered in general at 800 pixels. Maybe this should be really, the page is always 1200 pixels wide. But what happens between 800 and 1000 pixels? If the page is always 1200 pixels wide, when the page shrinks down to like 1000 pixels, that layout of 1200 will be too wide. We'll use a minimum. Min width, it's at minimum 800 pixels wide. And a maximum of width of 1000 pixels. And we'll redefine the page width, actually the page background color and width, just so we can see it. When the body, take 5, when the page is between 800 and 1000 pixels, make the background of the page black and make the inner column 800 pixels big. Save. Let's logic through the code before we preview it. Currently, the page has the background color defaulting to white, and that inner page column where we build the content is 1200 pixels. We now created two different rules. One rule states when the page is below 800 pixels, max width 800 pixels, change the background color of the page to orange and make that inner column only 480 pixels wide. The second rule, which is this new media query, starting here and ending here, redefines the background color as black between 800 pixels and 1000 pixels and that inner page column to be 800 pixels wide. Saving it, refresh, and here's our 1200 pixel layout. Our new rule states, as this page width shrinks, when it hits 1000 pixels and below, change the background color to black and make this column smaller. Continue to be like this until the page hits 800 pixels, and then the page shrinks to 480 pixels, and the background color becomes orange. This is the beginning of responsive design. When I start to shrink the page, notice that the content is falling off the screen. Here's a scroll bar. That means we have to redefine the breakpoints or redefine the widths. If this width states hit this 1000 pixel point, then become a 800 pixel page, that means between 1000 pixels and 1200 pixels, which is the normal size of the page will continue to be 1200 pixels. Maybe this breakpoint should really happen at 1200 pixels. To give a little room for the margin, let's make that 1250 pixels. All right, here's the setup again. Page is normally 1200 pixels wide. This is the background color of the body. When the width of the page shrinks, this media query states that when the page is between 800 pixels and minimum width 800 pixels and a max width of 1250 pixels, make the background color of the page black and shrink that page column down to 800 pixels. And as the page continues to shrink its width, when it hits a max width of 800 pixels from 0 to 800 pixels, make the background color of the page orange and the max width to 480 pixels. With all that in place, let's look at our responsive design. Pressing refresh, shrinking, and there it goes. See how the boundary between here and here doesn't produce scroll bars? That's good. That means none of the content of layout is hidden on the page. And now continue down to mobile design, go. And there's a little boundary right here. That boundary of that scroll bar happening from here to here, it's almost not noticeable. And if we're actually going from desktop to mobile, you probably won't notice it. We'll fix it. Just being a little cleaner about it. All right, so what is causing that? Our page goes down to 800 pixels. Maybe this rule should start out at 850 pixels, giving a little width for the scroll bars or any margins to happen. So I just modified the first media query to start out at 850 pixels. And if I change it to 850 here, I should change it to 850 here, so there's no overlapping. So the smallest media query is from 0 to 850, and the next breakpoint is from 850 to 250 pixels, and anything beyond 250 pixels wide is the definition of the style sheets outside of these queries. Saving it, refreshing the page, and if we did this correctly, all of our breakpoints will show up, not losing any content in the middle, and no scroll bars showing up. Here's our first breakpoint, which we fixed before, and this is the next one, ready for the jump. There it is. Excellent. And we could continue redefining these breakpoints. Maybe you want an ultra wide breakpoint. To do that, what happens on very wide screens? All right, let's add one more. Media, screen, and something. And that something will be what happens when the minimum width of this page is maybe 1300 pixels. Give it a little room, 1400 pixels wide. I'm going to change the background color in the page, so I'm just going to copy and paste these since we've been doing well with them. No sense in retyping them and potentially getting a typo. I'm going to make the background sky blue, and the width of the page would be around 1400. Let me add an extra. Maybe I want to switch it at 1450 and make the width of the inner page and its columns 1400 pixels. Going to this page, hitting refresh, appears everything wider than 1450 pixels. That's why we see sky blue. Anything between 1250 pixels and 1450 pixels wide will have a white background to the page, like here. Anything that's in between 850 pixels and 1250 pixels will have background color black, followed by anything that is smaller than 850 pixels will have a background of orange. So next breakpoint, and then the final breakpoint. And there's your responsive design. This concept has to be applied to the inner layout and also navigation. When you're on a mobile screen, you might opt for a hamburger menu or a hamburger menu with a few key elements in the navigation, while on a laptop or a tablet, you might want the full navigation that could fit. And that was your introduction to media queries and how you can use them to create breakpoints and changes to your styles based upon screen size.